Hey y'all, it's Shirley Neighborhood Therapist. So, I got asked to do a quick breakdown about bipolar disorder. If you click on this comment, it'll take you back to the video that I spoke about schizophrenia on, which was tied to the interview that Gucci Mane and his wife Keisha Kayor did on The Breakfast Club. So, for context, Gucci has been diagnosed with both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and I chose in the other video to only focus on schizophrenia. So now I'm going to answer Ann's question regarding doing a quick breakdown on bipolar disorder. So let's get into it. So, first and foremost, when most people think about bipolar disorder, I think they only really think about one of the types. And I'm not sure that a lot of people know that there are more types under the umbrella of bipolar disorder. To be specific, there are three that we could talk about: bipolar 1 disorder, bipolar 2 disorder, and cyclothymia. So let's do a quick breakdown just to give you all a little bit of information. So, in general, what is bipolar disorder? Well, it is a chronic mental health condition that is characterized by extreme mood swings, going from mania, which is a high, to depression or depressive episodes, which are your low states. And these episodes can vary in duration and severity, and they will likely significantly impact a person's life if gone unchecked or unmanaged. Now, also let me point out that that is the one thing that we look for when diagnosing any mental health condition. Is it significantly impacting your life in one or more areas, whether it be your personal life with family and friends, school, work, just the general different areas that we have in life? Any diagnosis, it needs to significantly impact you. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't get a diagnosis if you are managing it, but oftentimes with your more severe diagnosis, such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, other mood disorders, personality disorders, you have to have help managing it, and help often means medication management and therapy. Now, bipolar disorder. So I told you there are three, and I truly believe that most people, when they hear about bipolar disorder, they think of bipolar 1, and really they only think of the manic episodes. When people are experiencing the lows, you might just think that they have major depression, but sometimes it can be comorbid with bipolar disorder. So now, I do not often work with mood disorders. This doesn't mean that I never have or I'm incapable. I just don't often work with mood disorders. So that means that oftentimes I got to give myself a refresher on these things. It's no shame in that. I need folks to know just because somebody works in a certain field doesn't mean that they know everything, and no one should ever come to you and try to tell you that they know everything. We are constantly studying. We got to get continuing education credits and all that stuff. So sometimes I have to have notes when I'm talking to y'all, honey, and that is okay. So, when I went back to look through my own notes that I already have on bipolar disorder and the three that fall under the umbrella, here's what I have. So, when you are differentiating between the types, bipolar 1 means that you have at least one manic episode, typically followed by depressive episodes. Bipolar 2 disorder is characterized by hypomanic episodes, which are a less severe mania, and it also includes depressive episodes. Cyclothymia is a milder form of bipolar disorder, which means one would have less severe and shorter lived mood swings. Okay, so that's the differences between the three. Now, just like with other disorders such as schizophrenia and other diagnoses, there is no direct cause that is known, but it is believed to be a combination of genetics or being predisposed, biological, and environmental factors. Now, remember, those environmental factors are things like drug use, which can trigger the onset of any of these diagnoses. Remember, trigger, not cause. And I just want to add too, from the other day when I did talk about the schizophrenia, I only spoke on marijuana, but I would be remiss if I did not mention that Gucci and a lot of other people too also drink something called lean, or used to drink something called lean in his case. Lean or syrup, that is a mixture of codeine, promethazine, Sprite. Y'all know what that drink is. That's just a hard drug drink. That's all it is. That is hard drugs in drink form. And it can absolutely trigger the onset of something like bipolar disorder, just as it could with schizophrenia. Now, as I said, treatment for bipolar disorder, any of the three, would be medication management and therapy. Medication would include things like mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and antipsychotics. And of course, therapy includes coping mechanisms, management of symptoms, and just improving your overall well being. Now, real quick, just to give y'all some of the symptoms when someone is manic and or depressed. Mania symptoms would include things like elevated mood or euphoria, decreased need for sleep, increased energy and activity levels, racing thoughts and rapid speech, grandiosity or inflated self-esteem, and impulsivity and reckless behavior. Now, your depression symptoms are your general depression symptoms that you would see in major depressive disorder, which are persistent sadness or low mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities that you normally would find enjoyable, changes in appetite and sleep patterns, fatigue and difficulty concentrating, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, and suicidal ideation. So the symptoms can include a combination of these things. When you look at the criteria of any of the bipolar diagnosis, you have to meet a certain criteria. You have to meet a certain number of these symptoms. And with bipolar 1, you have to have had at least one manic episode. Now, what I would like to add is with the addition of social media nowadays, a lot of times y'all will see people on social media saying things and tweeting and putting things out back to back to back to back. And I've heard y'all say, oh, they having a manic episode. Could they be? Absolutely, but we don't know. But when you start to see people tweeting or saying things and it sounds crazy or irrational, or when people start making videos and they're just rambling and it's a bunch of word salad, could that be manic? Absolutely. But we don't know these people. We can't diagnose that. So just putting it out there, don't diagnose anybody, but it does kind of look like that if we want to look at it from a social media realm. Now, last but not least, just a little bit of additional information for your knowledge. Bipolar disorder only affects about 2.5% of the population. So, again, it is more rare. It's not as prominent as people might think. Like I said, I know y'all stay out here calling people manic and saying they having a manic episode. It's not as prominent as one might think. Now, that could be for various reasons. It could really just be less prominent, or it just goes undiagnosed in a lot of people. Bipolar disorder, any of the three, are more common in women than in men. Now, if you remember, I said schizophrenia was more common in men than in women, but here we have the reverse. More often, women are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which I feel a kind of way about actually, because I think that's because women are just associated with mood swings because of like PMS and stuff anyway. These are not the same type of mood swings at all. But I feel a kind of way. Like, I wonder if women really are more diagnosed or if that's just because men are not getting diagnosed and being given this particular diagnosis. But that's neither here nor there. Average age of onset for both men and women is ages 15 to 25. And something important, early diagnosis and treatment is crucial to the best possible outcome or improved outcomes. And also, I just want to make sure that I say, people diagnosed with bipolar disorder, any of the three, can absolutely live a functional life. They can live a functional, healthy, happy life as long as they stay up on their medications and their therapy. You need support for things like this, okay? And I am not against natural, holistic methods. And I do have my issues with big pharma and pushing medications, but for certain things, you absolutely do need medication in order to have the best possible outcome, and that is okay. Y'all have got to be okay with that because otherwise, you're going to have problems that you don't need to have if you just got the treatment that actually does work for a lot of people. Now, everything won't work the same for everybody, but with these particular chronic diagnoses, medication management and therapy hand in hand work wonders for people. So don't shy away from it and don't think that you can just heal it with natural remedies. Again, I'm not against holistic natural methods at all. I'm all for it, in fact. But be careful and be mindful of the fact that a lot of the drugs that people might use, such as marijuana and mushrooms and things like that, they can have adverse effects on these particular diagnoses, and all of them have the capability, including alcohol, to cause drug induced psychosis. You can have a drug induced psychosis whether you have one of these diagnoses or not. So just be mindful, okay? So I hope that you learned something from this brief introduction to the bipolar disorders. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I hope that y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of y'all day, and I will holler at y'all later.